Good afternoon, everyone. General Assembly Resolution 65234 requested all countries at the national, regional, and international levels to undertake reviews of the implementation of the Program of Action of the ICPD, and on the basis of that, for analysis to be prepared using the highest quality data for a systematic, comprehensive, and integrated approach to population and development issues. The resolution also wanted the member states to use the review to respond to new challenges relevant to population and development and to the changing development environment, and to reinforce the integration of population and development agenda in global processes related to development. Now, in the process of the review, we relied on a number of tools, including a global survey that many of your countries completed. We have held global thematic meetings, and we have relied on a number of other products that have come out of regional and international processes to enable us to triangulate the information. And I believe you can see now the country implementation profile that was used to organize information on each country on selected relevant indicators. The country implementation profile indicators are also consistent with the MDG indicators. And in a sense, they provide a good linkage to the post-2015 development agenda process, which is currently ongoing. I believe it was mentioned that in Africa, we had 52 countries out of 54 responding to the global survey. At the global level, we had the highest response rate to any survey. We had 176 countries and 8 regions and areas completing the global survey. Now, I just want to note, in terms of the triangulated information, that in Africa, for instance, you have agreed on human rights protection systems, including the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and on the rights of women. You have the Africa Youth Charter. Some of the countries in the region are, however, not signatories to one or both of these. And I think what the survey showed is that whilst ensuring the rights of women and young people should be an end in itself, the protection of human rights and the achievement of human dignity are inextricably linked to sustainable development. Now, on dignity, and you can see the issues that are identified there in terms of wealth, education, employment, discrimination, and the various population groups. The goal was to measure progress regarding equality of access to wealth, education, employment, and non-discrimination for all, particularly the marginalized groups, where we saw that a lot of gains have been made, but there were very critical gaps. Now, on the next slide, where we have the global wealth pyramid. I think what we notice is the wide disparities in wealth and income. And the key issue is it is not possible to achieve economic growth and sustainable development with such wide wealth disparities, and where you have the majority of people in poverty. Now, the good news is since Cairo, many countries in Africa and elsewhere have created numerous institutions to deal with gender equality and women's empowerment. Now, on measures of gender equality and women's empowerment, the evidence reveals that various regions support tertiary education for women and girls. However, in the area of participation and leadership of women, the commitment of governments is significantly lower. Now, you have in the next slide the percentage of governments addressing equality and in work and family life. I am not going to go into the details. I think it's clear. But when you put the 5 areas, commitments or laws that prevent discrimination of women in the workplace or discrimination against women in the workplace, policy commitments to work and family balance, maternity leave, paternity leave, and breastfeeding in the public workplace. The countries that express commitment to these 5 areas reduces to 18%. On trends in adolescent birth rate by income, the evidence shows a clear association between youth female literacy rates and adolescents birth rates. And with increased access to education for girls, the rate of adolescent pregnancies decline rapidly. And I think the key message here is that we cannot repent if we do not concretely address this issue in Africa. Now, when you look at a slide on how governments or there is some discrimination across the various groups, discrimination against pregnant girls receives the least attention from governments in Africa. On the declines in percentage of women between 15 to 49 years who have undergone female genital mutilation and cutting, the last decade has seen a downward trend in the percentage of women who have experienced FGMC. Yet in other countries, there have been little or no change. And in 3 countries on the continent, more than 70% of women have experienced female genital mutilation or cutting. In 1 country, the percentage rises to 97%. I think we can celebrate the significant achievements in health over the last decade. 40% reduction in maternal mortality. However, there's a wide disparity in terms of the women who die in childbirth, with poorer women often the ones that die from giving birth. In terms of skilled birth attendance worldwide, there was a 15% increase. Now, over the last decade, there has been more progress, but obviously a lot more remains to be done, especially in Africa. And what we saw was that the progress is quite uneven, and you can see the countries that have made progress in skilled attendance, and then you see the countries that have shown stagnation or even a reduction in skilled birth attendance. And again, poorer women are the ones that have the least access to skilled birth attendance. On contraceptive prevalence rate worldwide, there has been a 10% increase. Now, of course, this is critical to reducing fertility and achieving the demographic bonus. But the evidence shows that Africa lags behind all the other regions in this area. Now, the survey also showed African governments' priorities in the area of sexual and reproductive health. And the list you have there is the 5 issues that most governments mentioned. And they also reflect the areas of needs for sexual and reproductive health in Africa. Now, on issues related to internal and international migration, urbanization, displacement, and homelessness, governments identified a number of issues, including ensuring land housing services and livelihoods for the urban poor, promoting environmental management of urban agglomerations, and worldwide, 2/3 of governments expressed commitment to these issues. Now, among the 8 listed issues under urbanization and international migration, the one that received the most commitment from African countries was promoting decentralization, which was 85.1%. However, the evidence and future projections reveal a marked and rapid increase in the numbers of people living in or moving from rural to urban areas. This is significantly more so in the less developed regions. And we see a decline in rural populations. Now, these trends have significant implications for Africa. It, I think, calls for proactive planning and taking advantage of the concentration and proximity that you find in urban areas that can make cities centers of excellence and innovation. So, in a way, the policies of decentralization and investing in urban areas needs to be revisited. Now, government priorities for urbanization globally, the governments listed the priorities that you have in the slide, and these are in keeping with population trends and projections in Africa also. And obviously, prioritizing this would enable Africa to plan and accelerate sustainable development. With regard to governance, the issues addressed include integrating population planning, partnering with youth and non-state actors, strengthening data and knowledge systems, and expanding resource flows. Now, the percentage of governments addressing the participation of key population groups in decision-making gives an interesting picture. older persons receive the least attention, and globally, only 21% of countries are committed to including all 4 groups in governance. Now I move to sustainability. Now, the recognition that to ensure social, economic, and environmental sustainability, the 3 components of sustainable development needs to be addressed through incorporating population dynamics into policy formulation and planning. Also reveal that even though our governments have created institutions since to address population issues and so on, in many countries, integrating the activities and the planning related to these various institutions is not optimal, and there has not been a comprehensive approach to ensuring that population dynamics is reflected in the planning process. Now, the countries that will enjoy a significant youth bulge over the next 2 decades express concern with addressing the needs of their adolescent and youth populations, especially with regard to job creation and access to sexual and reproductive health services. This was the case with 94% of the countries responding. On economic growth, countries expressed interest in investing and planning for youth to harness the demographic dividend. And in terms of environmental and social costs, including the impact of population on the environment, including food security. On the issue of emissions and consumption, the evidence shows that the issue is not a ratio of people to emissions, but an issue of consumption. And so you can actually deal with the issue of climate change and so on and so forth by addressing innovation and other issues in terms of how we ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Now, based on the results, and there's a rich information that comes out of the survey and the other processes, but based on the outcomes of all those exercises, the regional analysis of the data, this conference that you are holding and its outcome, including those, we will prepare 2 reports for the Secretary General. It contains all the analysis and a summary, which will both go to the Commission on Population and Development in April next year, and then to the special session of the General Assembly. And I just want to end by describing the way the reports are going to be framed, because what we are trying to do is to reframe the population and development agenda in a way that captures the economic, social, and environmental approaches going forward through the post-2015 development agenda. And 5 thematic areas are going to define that new reframing. And these are dignity, health, place, governance, and sustainability. And all these are the issues of human rights and equality. I thank you, Mr.